Alrighty, the Zimmermann Telegram. Now, the Zimmermann Telegram comes about January of 1917. Some background on what's happening at this time period is ever since the sinking of the Lusitania, the United States of America has been monetarily supporting the British, okay? They're willing to put more effort behind the British. They think the British have a better chance of winning, and they're really a little bit upset at the British, okay? Because there's a number of Americans who were on board the Lusitania who died, or they're upset at the British. They're upset with what the Germans have done. Therefore, they're not really supporting the Germans. Now, initially, there was a lot of kind of contemplation in the United States about what side of the war to join. However, after this happens, they're going to be really totally pretty much for the most part supporting the British. Not now actually with soldiers, however, they are going to be monetarily, and everyone knows that the Americans are rooting for the British in this war. Additionally, Germany realizes they need some really powerful allies really fast, okay? The Austro-Hungarians are not doing what they expected them to be doing, okay? The Turks, the same thing, are not doing what they expected them to be doing, and Germany is not doing as well in this war as they would have liked. So they realize that they need someone to go and help them out. So what they're going to do, they're going to think back to history, look back across the pond, and see what's going on. So they're going to send a telegram to the Mexicans, okay? And their plan is for having the Mexicans invade the United States of America. This is going to allow them take the U.S. away from the British, which is something that the Germans really don't want the Americans supporting the British, because they feel, the Germans do, that they can actually go and defeat the British on their own, but if the Americans are there, it's going to be much harder. So it's going to take the Americans from really worrying about what's going on the Western Front in France with the British and the Germans fighting, and make them more worried about what's going on back at home. Historically speaking, initially with the Mexican-American War, the states of Arizona, parts of Southern California, and New Mexico and Texas all belonged to the country of Mexico. The United States really invaded, went all the way down to Mexico City, defeated the Mexicans, and then claimed those states as part of their country. This is happening in like the 1850s, 1860s, 1870s. The Mexicans still have this in their mind. They're still upset, and they do not like what is happening at this time. They're still frustrated with the Americans. They feel like the Americans went and stole their land, and the Mexicans really have some motivation and some incentive for going to war with the Americans and taking this land back. So there is a good possibility that the Mexicans, if they realize the Germans would support them, would actually try to invade the United States to take back this land and to really ally with the Germans. However, one big thing happens right here, dramatically changing the course of world history, is this telegram is going to be intercepted by the British. The British are going to read this and think, holy flippin' cannoli, what is going on? We have to get this to the Americans. This is totally going to get the Americans on our side and get the Americans to finally fight against Germany. Okay, they are like, woohoo! We are loving this thing right now. And this is going to lead to the United States joining the war. This is kind of the straw that broke that camel's back, really, when you come to think about what got the Americans into World War I. Zimmermann Telegram pretty much did it. Now, time to get sick, talking about the Spanish flu. Spanish flu is the second deadliest plague in history after only the bubonic plague of the early 1400s, right through there. There's really no certainty where it started, although Spain is kind of where everyone likes to say, in calling it the Spanish flu, even though it didn't start in Spain. And we'll talk about why that is in just a little bit. So if I ask you, where did the Spanish flu start? Do not tell me in Spain. It's just called the Spanish flu. The symptoms of the Spanish flu: number one, you're going to get blue skin due to lack of oxygen. You're going to be bleeding out your nose and your ears, and you're going to have spots all over your skin. You're going to be vomiting. You're going to have a high fever, rashes, and you're just going to kind of be achy and feel like absolute death. And eventually you end up dying from suffocation because your lungs fill up with fluid. Bad things happening, not real good. This is going to spread incredibly fast through the trenches. It's very, very contagious. You're in the trenches with someone who has this. You can't get out. If you get out of the trenches, you get shot. So you're stuck in the trenches with people who are sick, and you end up getting sick as well. Now, the reason it is called the Spanish flu is no side of the war wanted to admit that their soldiers were getting sick. Now, think about this. If you're the British and you're fighting here in this trench, you start saying, hey, we're all dying. That might give the Germans some motivation to start fighting back and really attack and ultimately defeat you. Germans thinking the same kind of thing. They don't realize that both sides are dying. Spain, though, is not a part of World War I, so they're going to happily admit, like, hey, we got people dying left and right from this same disease. Let's figure it out. When this happens, other countries start admitting what's going to happen, and it's ultimately going to help end World War I. That is all for now. Questions, comments, throw them down below. Otherwise, good luck.